Hello and welcome to GameSec. Today I'm taking a look at the new as of the making of this video anyway, Hyperkin RetroN GX console, which plays TurboGrafx 16 and PC Engine games. You may know Hyperkin from their 2014 RetroN 5 console or any of their other RetroN consoles, and they also make a bunch of retro accessories. And yes, they did send me this unit to review. So let's start off by taking a look at the console as well as some of its features. Here it is, the box for the Hyperkin RetroN GX. Inside the box you get the console itself, a Hyperkin controller, a power supply with a USB cable, and an HDMI cable. You supply your own games on HuCards, and CD games aren't supported. The Hyperkin RetroN GX is powered by what appears to be a Rockchip RK3128 system on a chip commonly used in smart TVs and the like. On the back of the console is an HDMI port which outputs only 720p. There's also a physical switch for 4x3 or 16x9. To the left is a USB-C connector for power, and below that is an SD card slot which comes with the card pre-installed. On the front is your power switch. To the right are two connectors for TurboGrafx controllers and two USB ports for USB controllers. Interestingly, they went with the larger TurboGrafx size connectors compared to the smaller PC Engine and Turbo Duo size connectors. It'll work fine with a 6-button controller if you have an adapter so that it fits in this particular jack. And yes, the TurboGrafx 16 mini USB controller works great. What's odd with these connectors though is that you can only use either or. You can't use the turbo connectors at the same time as the USB connectors, so only 2 players maximum. I haven't tried a hub to see if you can get 5 players via USB. I don't even think I have that many USB controllers. The controller itself feels a bit girthier than a real TurboGrafx 16 pad. The select and run buttons feel the same, and you have turbo switches for the buttons that can be moved up for 2 levels of rapid fire. These don't match the exact speed of a real turbo controller's rapid fire as demonstrated by this scene from Legendary Axe. The D-pad feels fine, until you try to move it. It can be a little sticky. Fortunately, you can use real TurboGrafx controllers or USB controllers here. The console will play both North American TurboGrafx 16 games and Japanese PC Engine games, and it automatically knows the difference. Unfortunately, Super Graphics games don't work at all. The Turbo EverDrive doesn't physically fit, but it doesn't matter because it wouldn't work even if it did. That's because the way the RetroN GX works is to read the game that's inserted and dump it to the SD card. It then emulates off of the SD card, but only if it detects the game in the card slot. The checksums must match. As of right now, there's no way to run games off of the SD card by itself. The Turbo EverDrive needs to be continuously accessed in order to read from its own SD card slot, so it's impossible for it to work, just like EverDrives on the RetroN 5 console. If you insert the SD card into a computer, you'll find a few ROMs that are already there, like Necromancer, Power League 3, Shanghai, and Space Invaders. These are likely fixes for games where they found issues, so the RetroN GX will read from these fixed versions instead of dumping the contents of your card if you happen to have these games. I can't imagine any other reason why these ROMs would already be here. The SD card also stores your save states and screenshots and all that stuff. You access the menu in the game by pressing Run and Select, the same thing you'd normally do to reset a game. The first item on the list is Rewind, which the box proudly lets you know that you can rewind up to 12 frames. At first I was like, what? 12 frames is only 1/5 of a second. I'd perhaps like to be able to rewind a bit further than that. But fortunately, it's not literally 12 video frames. You have 12 choices in time that you can back up to around 12 seconds in the past. The next options are for quick save and quick load, which could be handy if you're trying to get past a certain part, but it disappears when you power off. You also have save states, which will write to one of 4 slots for each game on the SD card. And you can load them back up at any time, even after you've played other games and power cycled the console. Games like Dragon's Curse and Utopia 2 recognize having the file cabinet to save games. And that's right, it'll let you save the game. However, it doesn't actually work. The next time you boot the game back up, the file cabinet will be empty. So just use the save states instead. You can reset the game, but you need to hold and wait. Then we have our video options. This will let you apply certain effects like a smooth filter. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Or scan lines. These decrease the overall brightness of the image quite a bit. There's also a black and white mode. I'm not sure why you'd want this, as it crushes some of the colors and detail. It's not like playing on a black and white TV. You can only have one of these effects enabled at any time. Then there's the scaling option. The top two do the same thing as the 4x3 and 16x9 switch on the back of the unit, and the bottom one is a skinnier mode, likely square pixels for the 256 pixel wide games, but it'll squeeze the higher resolution games to this same ratio. And that should about do it for the features and stuff. Okay, let's dig into the presentation and basically how well the console does or does not function. I had a real hard time with game compatibility. So many games that I tried would not work, even after I cleaned them and tried adjusting their positions a bit in the slot. In fact, most of my games wouldn't work no matter what. You can see on the SD card all of these games that failed to be recognized and didn't run. These exact same cards boot right up in my real TurboGrafx 16 or SuperGrafx, so there must be some issues with the slot itself. What good is a console if it can barely play any games? Neither of the aftermarket HuCards I have of Dino Force and Atlantean will boot up. But man, we're just getting started with the issues here. As you might notice, it's not exactly running well. Not at all. Seriously, just look how choppy the scrolling is. What should be 60 frames per second averages to about 32 frames per second here. But exacerbating this is the downright horrible frame pacing. Sometimes you'll get 2 good frames back to back, then a dropped frame, then 1 more good frame, then 3 dropped frames. The cadence isn't steady at all, and it really makes the games difficult to play. I mean, if you even think this is playable to begin with. It's bad. Here's the RetroN GX side by side with a real TurboGrafx 16. If you couldn't tell how jerky the GX was before, surely you can see the difference now. Still though, just make sure you're watching this video at 60 frames per second. Or how about this scene? This dude's legs flicker on and off to give kind of a fake translucent effect of them being in the water. This works well enough on the real console, but you can see how bad the frame pacing is on the left as the RetroN GX just can't do it right. TurboGrafx simulation was better than this back in the late 90s. The bad frame rate and bad frame pacing affects every single game that this console can run, not just the ones that I'm showing you here. Every single game. The controls themselves aren't inherently laggy, but the bad frame rate and pacing means that you'll experience anywhere from 1 to 4 frames of lag at all times. It's not consistent. I used the included power supply and USB cable, and I even tried a significantly beefier one and got the same result, so that's not the issue. One thing that I'd like to point out is that the GX here uses RGB colors, not the composite colors that the developers designed the games with. Usually this is fine, but some games like Bonk will look a bit wrong. As you can see, he looks more contrasty and orange on the GX, whereas he's actually supposed to look more like a white boy. The RetroN GX also applies a strange dither pattern over everything for some reason. If you change the video options to smooth, scanline, or black and white, the dither pattern is still there. I'm not sure why they thought to add this, and it currently can't be disabled. Lastly, as far as the graphics are concerned anyway, is that there's shimmering in the scrolling of higher resolution games, like Legend of Hero Tanma here. That's because there's little to no interpolation in the horizontal video sizing. It doesn't matter how you set the aspect ratio in these games, it's always there. That is, if you can see it through the extreme judder as it scrolls. The smooth video filter will actually help you here though. So, how's the audio? Well, it sounds mostly fine, I'd say. Here's a comparison of the sound quality between the two. Yeah, so that's fine, but there's one problem. The delay. Yeah, there's some serious audio delay here, about 18 to 20 frames of delay. That's approaching half of a second. Check it out. Again, this affects every single game without exception. I told Hyperkin about the graphical and sound issues as well as the compatibility issues and even sent them a video. At first, they didn't see or hear anything wrong. This was all fine to them, but I persisted. It took them a bit, but they think that the dithering pattern is what's causing the issues in the frame rate and frame pacing. They said that the performance improves when the scan lines are enabled. And they're right, well, kind of. performance does indeed improve when the scan lines are enabled, but only sometimes for me. It's also still far from perfect though, and the dithering still seems to be applied with the scan lines as previously mentioned. I asked if they could make a firmware to remove the dithering, and they said that they're working on it and want to make it a good product, so hopefully that firmware will be available soon. But this is the current state that the console is in, and well, that's what I've got to review. If you own real HuCard games, it's very likely that you also own a real TurboGrafx or PC Engine as well. You just want to be able to play them via HDMI and maybe use save states and the like. This will certainly let you do that, assuming that it even recognizes your games at all. It's also extremely disappointing how bad the performance is when it does run them. I'm not really sure who this is for. And there you have it, the Hyperkin RetroN GX as of right before its launch. I guess one advantage that this thing has is that it's cheaper and probably a lot easier to get than the likes of the Analog Duo. So what are your thoughts on this? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSat. The TurboGrafx 16 is an awesome console. It has exclusive games on card, like Dragon's Curse. Check it out. But since the game is on card, I wonder if it could work on the Sega Master System. You know what I'm thinking, don't you? No, I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking maybe I should try it on the Sega Master System. But did you know that the Sega Master System has its own cards like Teddy Boy? Check it out. You know, I wonder if this works the other way around. Let's try it. Yeah, that's the joke. You may now commence laughing.